Quebec, Canada, fighting Troy the Destroyer Dorsey, 12 rounds for the World Super Lightweight Championship.
What are you going to do now as far as kickboxing?
First, I want to thank God. Say hello to my wife, Shelly and Kendra. Happy birthday, Shane. And thank all of my instructors and students at my school. Now, pick up kickboxing and boxing both again and go after a world title.
Congratulations.
Okay, thank you. All right.
The winner and still hurricane World Super Lightweight Champion of the world, Troy the Destroyer Dorsey!
Welcome everyone to If the Gloves Could Talk. I'm your host, Bryce George, and I have here with me today, as always, Mr. Troy Dorsey. Troy, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. We had a fantastic Jesus-filled Christmas yesterday and the day before, so it just keeps on going. And yeah, we were very fortunate to see our kids, our grandkids, our son-in-laws, and my parents. My dad's birthday is December 25th.
Oh, really? He's a Christmas baby.
Yes. So we celebrated my earthly father's birthday and my heavenly father's birthday.
I love that. And can you believe it's almost 2024?
I can't believe it. 24.
I know.
It just, time flies.
It does. And I'm just thinking of all the great things that have happened in 2023. I spoke about it a little bit in last week's episode, but we moved into this building in 2023, which used to be Troy's karate studio. And we've got lots of greatness ahead of us in 2024, I feel like. So
Yeah, it's just the beginning.
Yes. And I want to remind everyone watching, Troy, do they need to follow this show if they're not already?
Yeah, sure. Please follow and look and.
So look,
share.
follow, and share. So
Not asking too much of you there.
Exactly.
But we want to get the word out. And if you're bored, tell me.
And you guys, if you'll comment on the bottom of our videos when we post them, we'll make sure and respond to them during the show. I do want to give a shout out to Mr. Tony Christensen. Is that how you say his?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much for your reactions and participating with the show. It's always great to see you interacting with us on the Facebook page. So again, if there's anyone else that wants to do that, we'll make sure and show our appreciation and mention it during the episode.
Thank you, Tony.
Yeah, but we've got a great episode ahead of us. This is episode 5, which is going to be the last episode of 2023. It's going to be posted this Friday. And during this episode, we're going to do, as always, our A Blast from the Past segment. We've got a great interview coming up, which we'll talk more about later. And we're just going to kind of reminisce on the awesomeness of 2023. It's the last episode of this year. So, guys, we'll be right back after the A Blast from the Past segment. And when we come back, we'll talk more.
We had Mr. Dorsey, Troy Dorsey, on last week, and we're going to try to keep it going. When we think about the city of Mansfield, you are are active in this city, and you are I like to say a staple of the city. Born from Mansfield, were you born in Mansfield?
I was born in Mansfield, yes.
What
sir.
hospital?
Cedars Hospital, down on Broad Street on the left, across from the nursing home, that area.
I'm trying to think what that is. I mean,
It's a city building now. It's a some type of city building.
I know what you're talking about.
They tore the hospital down.
Okay, so the hospital used to be right there off Broad Street.
Yes, sir.
And now the big one is, now we have 2 big hospitals here.
Oh, yes, sir.
We have Mansfield, the Methodist Hospital, and we have Texas Health. two big hospitals in here. I'm talking major hospitals.
Oh, yes, sir.
And back there was, one high school. We talked about that last week. And one hospital, right?
Yeah.
One hospital. Everybody pretty much knew everybody in the city, right?
Yeah, yes, sir. It was a lot smaller then, and seemed to know pretty much everybody. Yes, sir.
When you fought, I mean, you got some cheap shots hit against you, right?
Oh, yes, sir.
Did you ever throw a headbutt like, say, you know what, I'm getting back at you?
I had in my mind, I had that I was going to do that some of the times, some of the fights that I had, but I really never did it when I was fighting. I really never did it. I
never intentionally like kicked in the midsection. Like they got you once or twice. You're like, enough's enough.
Well, the midsection or in the groin?
Under the groin.
Below the belt.
Yeah, below the belt.
Yeah, I never kicked anyone below the belt on purpose. On purpose. There's some times when I was doing point karate where on purpose you kick them below the belt, but they had protection on. But sometimes it didn't help too much. So
yeah, I'm not going with the protection.
Yeah.
I mean, you can wear a motorcycle helmet for protection, but I don't want to get kicked off the motorcycle.
No.
Say I had a helmet on. Still probably didn't feel too good.
No, sir.
So, okay, so we have that out there. I was going to ask you another question along the same lines of that. All right, so let's talk about Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield. You remember that fight when those two got together, and I think it was twice that Tyson bit his ear. You remember that?
Twice?
Twice. I think he bit it twice. For sure he did it the once, right?
Once he bit it off.
Yeah, he bit it off. I mean, he bit it off in that it was that fit of rage, the frustration level, right? You're getting beat, and Tyson was just getting beat by Evander.
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying that, obviously it's not the right thing to do. Hey, kids, if you're at home, don't go bite your brother or sister's ear off.
Well,
I'm not saying it's never excusable.
Kids get frustrated and they do things like that.
Yes.
I don't think they're going to bite somebody's ear off, but he was a big kid at that time.
So I mean, I know we look at that and we think, God, that was horrendous. But you're in a war when you're in that boxing, right?
Yeah,
Take me through that, because there's things you do as a person. We see it in football, baseball. Things that's unfortunately outline or define a boxing or somebody's career by that one little act.
Yes, sir.
I mean, you're frustrated. You're getting beat, Troy. Talk me through some of those days when you were just in the corner. Maybe you're getting hit and you're like, I can't win this, and you're frustrated, and you got to, in your mind, say, I've got to do something, anything to get an advantage.
Well, it's a losing battle at times. You can come back stronger, and you come back sometimes you're not stronger, because there's always out there somebody better and tougher. And it really is tough, though, in the ring, as far as, and I'm not saying it's not tough on the football field, it's not tough on the basketball court, it's tough in all sports. But when you're boxing or kickboxing, yeah, there's somebody kicking you, somebody punching you, and it can be very difficult to fight through, especially when you're frustrated. But so when you're frustrated, what do we typically do? We don't do something. We do something we're not proud of. In other words, we retaliate.
Yep.
But retaliation is not what we should be doing. So I don't recall ever doing that when I was fighting. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm just saying I played by the rules pretty much.
What about boxers boxing against you, fighting against you? Did any of them ever retaliate against you in ways that you remember?
I don't believe so. They
that was
might have.
the dirtiest time in boxing, Troy.
Yeah,
Come on now.
I don't believe so. Of course, it was all on purpose when they were punching me, and when I fought Jesse James Lehall from San Antonio, Texas, he cut me up pretty bad. I had two cuts up here, going this way, like this, and then one cut here, one cut here, one cut here, and I got in the fourth round, the end of the fourth round, I believe it was, I got hit with a punch that was right on my eye, and it was swollen shut. And when he hit me in the eye, it was just so painful. And I remember I didn't fall down, I just took a knee. But I was on the inside, I was crying, I was hurting, it was tough. And then I stood up in the bell ring, I believe, and then went back and then they stopped the fight because of the cuts. And but yeah, Jesse and James, I started it. I was calling him, I was saying some terrible things to him before the fight at the weigh-in about how he wasn't tough and I was tough and I was going to get him. And so I was getting encouraged by my team of to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm not really sure why I did it, but I followed the instructions and I did it. and then I paid for it. So
Yeah, sometimes you fire that other fighter up, right? You get them motivation, and their motivation was to take it out on you on that. So we see that still. I mean, that was a big part of boxing, the trash talking before the fight, right?
It was, but I never did it before then. Pretty much, I don't recall, and I didn't do it after.
Certainly not afterwards.
No,
right?
because it was just that was not my style. And some people they're real arrogant and real.
So what was your style?
My style was to talk with my hands and talk with my feet, and be a good sport. My parents raised us that way to be a good sportsmanship, or be a good sport. That's what it is. And
even if somebody did something, I mean, what about when you got headbutt? I know you had to get headbutt in a time or two, right?
Yes, sir.
First of all, I want to know the pain level on that. Is that just the worst pain, getting headbutt?
Sometimes when they headbutt you, I mean, yes, it can be really painful. But sometimes you don't even really. You're so amped up. You're amped up, and you don't even really feel it.
Are most of those headbutts, are they intentional? Are they just because your guys are just right there next to each other?
I think most of it is probably is not intentional.
Gotcha.
It's just because you're in there fight. My trainer would tell me to put my head in his chest and camp out there. So when you have somebody right here, think about it. You have someone right here, and they're down in a stance, got their side turned. What can you hit them? You can't hit them.
Yep.
You can't hit them. If you step back, give yourself some room, then you can get an uppercut in there. And some people did that to me for sure. But just staying right here and just spending every round right here on that person, punching them in the body, wearing them. They said this before, or I think I said this before, that you kill the body and the head will die. Of course, I wasn't ever trying to kill anybody. It's just a saying, you kill the body and the head will die. So they're going to go down.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that saying before. I just wonder, I got a lot of body you got to get through. A lot of body. Probably wouldn't take long, though. A couple of them punches, I'd be throwing the towel in. Did you ever throw the towel in or have the towel thrown in?
No.
Never?
No, sir. No, sir.
That's got to be, for a coach, that's got to be, as your coach or what do you call it? You don't call him coach, do you?
Oh, you're my boxing trainer?
Yeah, your boxing trainer.
Our boxing coach is the same thing.
Is that that has to be probably the toughest decision. I mean, are those conversations that you have,
yes, sir,
throughout the day or throughout the fight?
Are you okay, Troy? You want to keep going, Troy? Are you okay? My safety was their number one concern.
But they would know that, I know it never happened, but they would know when you would say yes, but it really meant no.
No, I told them the truth during that time. I was just so amped up and ready to go, and I say so amped up. When I fought Leha, and there's a couple other fights that I fought, also same thing. It's just like I was totally out of gas. I was on empty. I had starved myself to make that weight, and it was so tough. And
could you feel that in the ring?
Yeah, just no energy, just nothing.
Was it worth it?
Was it worth it?
Yeah.
Was what worth it?
Did you win?
No, I lost.
Yeah, so was it worth it? Like starving? I mean, why weren't you? Here you go. So why weren't you in shape to begin with, Troy?
Well, I was in great shape. I was just getting my weight down. I wasn't doing it the right way, and I was starving myself there toward the end, thinking I could get it down. But I had been fighting that weight for some time now, and instead of me getting down there, it's never easy. Instead of getting down there with a good plan over a 6-8 week period of time to lose 14, 15 pounds, I waited to the end, and I was trying to lose it, and it just wasn't coming off. Just wasn't coming off, and I just finally had to get in the sauna and stay in there like 2 times in 30 minutes. So I was in there for an hour, and there was nothing left. So there was already nothing left after the first time. And then the second I went in there, that kind of was that drove the nail in the coffin right there. Yeah. And then I went out that night. So the day before, this weigh-ins were the day before. So I went out that night and I ate. I think I might have eaten a steak, but it takes a long time to digest that. And now I know that, but back then I didn't know. So I know now it's chicken or fish. It's pretty easy on your body, and vegetables, but we want the steak.
Oh yeah, no, we're a lot of steak and potatoes right here.
My name is Troy Dorsey. We offer martial arts and karate training and fitness kickboxing training. Our karate program is for men, women, and children of all ages. From 4.5, we even have a student that's 91 years old. Also, we teach fitness kickboxing. It's a 1-hour non-contact class of punching and kicking a bag, because hitting a bag is like weightlifting to help strengthen and tone your muscles. Give us a call at 817-477-5523. Come in and see us today and start your martial arts experience with us now.
Welcome back, Destroyers. And Troy, you may not have learned this till just now, but I decided in our episode last week that I was going to call our viewers the Destroyers, because I just feel like that's only, it just makes sense. We have to call them that. So for those that may not know, Troy's, I'd call it your fighting name, right?
Yeah, my ring name.
His ring name was the Destroyer, and it has Troy in it, Destroyer. So that's what we're going to call you guys. So again, thank you all for watching, and again, like, comment, and share. We're so excited to keep making this content for y'all. And Troy, why don't you tell our watchers a little bit about the interview that they're about to watch with Roy Kurban?
Oh, Mr. Kurban is a great man. I've known him, I think I was 11 when I started. I think he might have said I was 8 or 9. So thank you, Mr. Kurban. You think I'm younger than I am. That's always good. But he's just amazing martial artist. He had a school in Arlington for many years. He has one in Strawn now, and he is just ongoing. I can't remember, how old did he say he was? Was he 77?
He's in his 70s, I know.
Yeah, he's amazing. He is amazing. His attitude, his gratefulness is just unbelievable. You're going to always get a huge smile from him, talking with him, and he's just over the top as far as kind goes.
Yeah, great guy. We were able to have him in person here in the studio, so that'll be lots of fun. But he's just so awesome. He could write his own autobiography about his life, and there's just so much to learn about him. I would say the most interesting part about his career is learning about him going over to Asia, overseas, and studying martial arts over there. So lots to learn. It was a great conversation. And there's way more to discuss, so we'll have to have him back on the show.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
For sure. So, guys, we will be right back after our interview segment to recap this episode. Welcome, everybody, to If the Gloves Could Talk. I'm your host, Bryce George, and here with me, as always, I have Mr. Troy Dorsey, and I don't have just one guest, I have two. Roy, will you introduce yourself for our guests?
My name is Roy Kurban, and I've been a martial arts practitioner since 1965.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us today. Troy, how excited are you for this interview?
I'm excited. I really appreciate you coming all this way, Mr. Kurban, to join us on the podcast and share some of the things you've done and how we know each other and things like that. Thank you so much for coming today. I really appreciate it.
Honored to be here with you, Chan.
Thank you.
So, Roy, if you'll first start for us, tell us a little bit more about yourself and how exactly you met Mr. Troy here.
Well, I started training in 1965 when I was a junior at Sam Houston High School in Arlington. And I started first with Alan Steen, and for a period of time he quit teaching in Arlington. He was opening up other schools in Dallas. So I started training with Ed Johnson at the local YMCA, who was a famous Isshinryu teacher and practitioner. And when Ed left to go back to went to East Texas to ride wild horses and do the rodeo, I went back with Mr. Steen and I stayed with him to black belt. I made my black belt in '68. So I trained at UTA, and I trained under some of the best black belts in the United States. He had Skipper Mullins there, but the guy I spent the most time with was Larry Castor. Tremendous teacher and coach, great life experience. To this day, I owe him so much. You think about your teachers, and how much you owe them, what an influence they had on your life. And Larry Castor was certainly the man. Skipper Mullins was one of the first of 4 Americans to win the world championship. Skipper Mullins won the lightweight, and then Chuck Norris won the middleweight, Mike Stone the light heavyweight, and Joe Louis won the heavyweight. That was in New York City in 1968. So it was a wonderful, exciting time to be in the martial arts. It was just the rage in America, and what had happened, the sport had taken off because of 3 main things. One was because there was a black belt magazine that covered it, but they branched out to Karate Illustrated, which really covered the tournaments. And then Official Karate Magazine came along, and then Action Karate Magazine, and then the Fighters Magazine, and then Pro Karate Magazine. And what they did, they focused on the fighters. Well, people started promoting all over the country, and the first pioneers to come to this country would have been Jun Rhee in '57 and Henry Cho about the same time. Jun Rhee started in Texas at UT, and then he trained people. He moved to Washington, where he had a tremendous effect on martial arts. He trained both my teacher and Pat Burleson of Fort Worth, who was a pioneer, and trained many great people. And then it was Henry Cho in New York City, and Richard Chun also there. So we had these people coming in. On the West Coast had been Ed Parker, who taught Bruce Lee, who taught, even trained with Mike Stone, Chuck Norris, trained so many people, was phenomenal Kempo stylists. But it all caught on in about a 5-year period. There was a tournament circuit, and people were traveling all over the country to fight. And the main tournaments were, of course, in New York, Washington, D.C., Dallas, Texas, Los Angeles, Chicago, St. Louis. They're popping up everywhere, Las Vegas, but it was like a golf pro circuit.
Right.
You go to East Turf and say, well, I'm the U.S. champion, I'm the All-American, I'm the Western National. But you went to all these tournaments, and your ranking and the fighting was based on who you beat, the size of the tournament you competed in, and it was determined by a coach's vote, a fighter's vote, and what you did in the ring. So it was a pretty good way to figure out who the top fighters were. There was not a lot of money back then, but it was just all glory. And a lot of people did a lot of good. And the head of the trial, it was Chuck Norris. He was amazing. I watched Chuck fight in Dallas in 1968. I was a brown belt just before I made black. And people, good fighters, walk out of the ring, and after he beat them, they'd walk out and go, what just happened? I don't know how he did that. He could throw them, he could sweep them, he could good with both legs, both hands, beautiful techniques and timing. But there were so many good people experimenting. They were at first it was Japanese all the way, Japanese stylists, form, kicks, punches, everything. Koreans the same way, Chinese the same way, and then America got a dose of what we later called being eclectic. If it works, use it. Here's a perfect example.
Right.
A Taekwondo black belt who developed devastating punches, and he put it together. So he was a champion not only in the competition in tournaments, he was a champion in kickboxing and a world champion and a champion in boxing. So he did the whole thing. And there are only a few people that did that. Joe Louis did it. And he did it. And there were some other great fighters that kind of stayed in their lane, but they did great things. I could talk about Ron Marchini. Bill Wallace was probably the best of my generation. Jeff Smith was incredible. There was Pat Worley. The scope and the depth of the fighting pool was unbelievable. So it was just a joy to go and compete, and we all tried to kill each other in the ring, and we had no pads. It was bare hands and feet, but 2-point matches. So every match was like a one spread.
Right.
And then we went to 3-point matches, and then 5 points with a 2-point spread, and then 7 points with a 5-point spread, and finally total points. So when you first were competing, then you were a wind sprinter. You were a 50-yard dash, and then it became a 100-yard dash. You did everything as hard and as fast as you could, and a lot of injuries. No pads.
No gear, yes.
No mouthpieces. No, I didn't wear those. But eventually it all changed, slowly but surely. But what happened, the beautiful thing that happened, if you fought in Los Angeles on a Saturday and next weekend you're in Dallas, the rules would be different. Can you imagine playing baseball by different rules all over the country, or football?
I don't even think I could play baseball with the same rules in every country.
No, but there were different rules. It depends on where you were.
Right.
So you had to adapt. But then all of a sudden, in the I think the late '80s, everybody sat down and said, we need to take a hint from the other sports that are very successful.
Right.
We need to do is have the same set of rules. So a lot of people met and talked for a period of about 5 years. We had a good group in Texas called the Amateur Organization of Karate. A great group of black belts that sat down and worked things out, tournament calendar, what the rules were, what disqualification was. And it changed, and it sporadically happened around the country. And then an editor for Karate Illustrated magazine, Ronaldo Barton, got us all together and said, guys, we need to have one set of rules. And we did. And then we entered the 2-point kick rule. And when we first said, let's have 2 points for a kick, everybody got upset, the Japanese and the Chinese styles, because they don't do those high, hard kicks. But we said, no, you get 2 points for a groin kick or a body kick. And they went, oh, okay, we can do that.
Right.
So that spread, and that changed the fight also. And then we got the pads, and that changed everything too. It was a whole different thing. And you'd see guys using judo in these matches. You could win with elbows, headbutts, that one. If you knocked a guy on the ground, you had 3 seconds to hit him and finish him. And it was the Wide World of Sports did a tournament. I want to say it was in 1963 or 64. It was June Reed's tournament, and it came on the Wide World of Sports. And after that, there was so much bleeding. So many people got hurt. They said, we will never, ever film this sport again. It's savage. And they didn't until 1975. 75, it finally made the TV again. And that's when they had that first PKA World Championship. And until that time, they said, no, we will not cover it. Well, you know, at that time, when the martial arts came to America, a lot of people that brought it here were some of the Asian founders. They came, but a lot of American GIs brought it home from Japan and then from Korea and Okinawa.
Like you, right?
Well, like me, maybe. But it was just a beautiful thing, and you became friends with guys. I had great friends all over the country, and we'd go out and we'd meet each other and try and kill each other, but afterwards we were friends. It was 2 things. But I made a lot of lifetime friends like that. Met a lot of wonderful people. And you always hear about Chuck Norris because of the movies and everything. He was so famous, but you know, a lot of people, when they watch him in the movies, he was in his 40s, 50s, and 60s making those movies. You should have seen him fight in his 20s. Oh my.
And you were in one of his movies, weren't you, Troy?
Twice on
Twice.
Texas Ranger.
Yeah, we have that footage somewhere, but Troy was featured in there. Did you have any lines?
No. Matter of fact, I was a referee, and what do? They had somebody else's voice. I was supposed to be talking, but I wasn't talking.
They're like, his voice is too quiet. Like, we need like a scarier voice for the ref.
I don't know what it is.
Well, that's crazy, but it sounds.
And then one time, Chuck Norris knocked me and 4 other guys out. So he knocked 4.
He really did knock. Oh, in the movie or in real life?
In the movie.
Okay.
I'm sure he could do it.
Right.
He never did too. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so he knocked 4 of us out, and yeah, this is what it was.
Well, it's obvious, Roy, you've had a very successful career so far.
I got to tell you, I was blessed. I've had a very successful life because of the martial arts, because of my teachers, because of my friends. I've had a very fortunate life. But the martial arts will teach you can do anything you set your mind to. And Henry Ford was right. Whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right.
Yes.
Right.
So that's the spirit you try that the martial arts teaches to children, teaches to adults, and it just has been a blessing my whole life, and I've been very, very fortunate because of it. You know, when I ran for judge in 1990, my friend Chuck Norris flew from California and did a fundraiser for me. That got everything going.
Yeah.
It was wonderful, yeah, and he did a follow-up 4 years later. But that type of thing, that camaraderie and friendship between martial artists, it transcended the fighting and made for lifelong friendships. It really did. But it does teach you can do anything. That's why it's so good for children. It's good for everybody.
I love it. And one style of fighting we haven't discussed is one you'd study called Ishinryu. Did I say that right?
You did.
I actually looked up videos online to make sure how to pronounce it because I didn't want to butcher it. So can you tell us what that style of fighting is? Is it a common style of fighting? How did you learn it?
Well, what you're looking at is one of the older styles. You're looking at a style from Okinawa. And the chief instructor was named Shimabukuro. And he was the one that taught Ed Johnson. Ed was in Okinawa for almost 5 years. He was with the Marine Corps, and he was there as a Marine guard, a jail guard. and he trained every day with Shimabukuro. They had old ways of doing things that have since changed. We have what you call traditional martial arts, where they do it as close to the original practicing as possible. That's in Aikido, in Judo, in Karate. In every martial art you look at, there's some people that stick very close to the traditional way. And when it was first developed, it was developed to be used against people that had weapons, when you did not. So it was a very, very serious business. A lot of hand conditioning went on to make the hand and the body tougher. So everything about it was to be able to survive.
Mm-hmm.
And they used basic weapons. They would take things like the nunchucks were used for threshing rice. The bow that they carried was used for carrying baskets of rice or vegetables on your shoulder. Mm-hmm. Everything they had was a farm implement. The tonfa, which the police called the PR-24, it kind of a T-shape. It was like you have a handle here and then a long stick. The police used it for riot control and for defensive tactics. They used it also for threshing on the rice, working on the rice.
Mm-hmm.
So all these things, because at one point when Japan controlled Okinawa, nobody was allowed to have a weapon unless you were members of the samurai class. You couldn't have a weapon. So they had to develop other ways to protect themselves. So, it's really beautiful, because you could say all martial arts started in India, and they had Bodhidharma, who was spreading Buddhism through China, and he was opening temples, a new concept of Buddhism. Can you imagine being a new concept? Thousands of years ago. And when they came in there, as they traveled that rough terrain over the Himalayas, the monks were dying from exposure and weakness. So he developed a form of exercise and self-defense by watching animals fight. And then that spread in China, and in China they called it Te. We called it Kung Fu. Kung Fu means skilled, so you can be a Kung Fu cook, a Kung Fu author, but basically it means skilled. So within China, at least 300 to 400 different styles because of the size.
Wow.
Immersed. The Chinese went through Korea, the martial arts spread through there, from Korea and China into Okinawa, from Okinawa into Japan. And the interesting thing about the Japanese martial arts, the one person that's considered the major mover and shaker was a little bitty elementary school teacher named Genshin Funakoshi. He was probably maybe 5 foot tall. And he took the art from Okinawa to Japan. And when he took there, the royal family was so impressed, because basically most of the martial arts people didn't read or write and were pretty common people, farmers, that type of thing, merchants. He was considered an educated man, so he taught the royal family, and they accepted it in Japan. And the style that he brought forth was called Shotokan. Mm-hmm. Shoto was his pen name. It was his pen name, Shoto. So the house of Shoto. So karate, if you hear the words karate, it means empty hand. Way of the empty hand. Karate do, way of the empty hand. If you look at judo, gentle way. Taekwondo, way of fist and foot.
I never knew what all that meant for. Did you know, Troy?
Yes, I've heard of it.
I'm sure he does. I'm sure he knows all of it.
Sometimes I have to check. I have to do have to make sure Troy knows his stuff,
I promise you he does.
I'm sure.
You don't need me here. You could ask him all these questions.
Right.
But it was wonderful how it changed. And then within the schools, different systems developed. And after World War II, all these Americans stationed in Okinawa, Japan, they brought it back. It was really new stuff to us. Judo had been in America for many years, but not karate, very little karate. And it was people like Nishiyama, Takayuki Mikami, Tsutomu Oshima that brought it from Japan to America. Mm-hmm. It was amazing to watch. They were just, their level of skill was completely different than ours. They're incredibly powerful. Very small people, but incredible strength and balance. And I got to train with some of those guys, and with the Dashi Master, with some of the really great people, just in a seminar, like I got to meet him. Same thing in Korea. I got to train in Wonji Park, and you watch him kick or punch and go, oh my, we don't kick or punch like that. He does something different.
So how many years did you train outside of the country?
Well, only 1 year. I was drafted out of UTA. In 1969, and I went to I did basic training at Fort Bliss, and then I went to Denver, Colorado, where Fitzsimmons Hospital was. It was the U.S. amputee headquarters for during Vietnam. It's a pretty grim place. And then my second year, I was sent to Korea, and I was stationed in Seoul, Korea, with the 8th Army, and it was great duty. I ran a gym. It was a wonderful, wonderful job. I was very fortunate to be there.
Right.
And that's where I met my teacher, Kwon Park, and we've maintained a friendship and a relationship since 1970. Like I said, last week we went out for dinner.
Wow.
Yeah, he's an amazing person, very humble guy, but amazing. And you get to meet all these people with different viewpoints. And the thing that happened in America, we went crazy over this. We loved it. Everybody just loved it. And like I say, I'm fortunate to know this guy right here. He is held in such high respect in so many circles. I don't think he knows how highly respected he is. But
I know.
He's done everything.
He's way too humble.
Yes, he is. And he did everything with great grace. He's very kind to people. You see these guys shouting at each other before they fight and after. No, he was always a gentleman. He did well and respected the martial arts, and everybody respected him.
Right.
Yeah.
I love it. Troy, do you realize that you're a big thing? You're a big deal?
No, not really.
That's why he is.
Right.
I've done some. I call it a blessing to be able to live the life that I've lived with the support of my parents, and then most of my life I've been with my wife now, 37 years. So yeah, she's been my number one supporter, supporting me, cheering me on, allowing me to go places and do things. I've been to Europe twice this year, not this week.
I was like, wow, that's pretty impressive. This week.
Yeah. So I've been to Europe 12 times. Mr. Kurban's been all over too. So yes, I've not been to Hong Kong or Tokyo or anywhere. Korea.
Is that on the bucket list?
I'm not sure.
If it happens, it happens.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Roy, you briefly mentioned it at UTA. Can you tell us a little bit about the course that became accredited at UTA? And then also, for those who don't know, UTA is University of Texas at Arlington here in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. It's, I believe, like the third largest public university in the state. So, but yeah, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I knew that martial arts was being taught in universities all over the United States. Judo, karate, taekwondo, and that's where it really got its start. The Korean and Japanese instructor went into the universities and got it accredited. So I thought, I can do that. Well, I went down to UTA and I met with Dr. Anderson, who ran the physical education department, told him what I wanted to do. So he said, give me a course outline. I made a course outline, a gold belt outline, an orange belt outline. And you won't believe this, but the textbook for the program was my book, Kicking Techniques. That book and Kim Pyung-soo's Paul Gay 1, 2, and 3. So they had a written test twice, open book, and then if they made all their classes, did well in the open book test, they passed the program. But at the end of the course, if they wanted to test, they could come to my school and take an exam, but they were not required to. So a lot of people started there and ended up going all the way to black belt. But it was really interesting, and at one point I remember having 80 people in class.
Wow, that's a big class.
But it was easy to teach. They're all college kids. You didn't have a lot of age disparity. Like
right.
You go to one school, you got a 10-year-old and you got an adult, and you
right.
really tested then. But it was a lot of fun and met a lot of great people. And then I got real busy with the Karate International Council of Kickboxing, which was a Chuck Norris organization for kickboxing. And I'm traveling the country with Larry Castor, Chuck Norris, Kenny Norton was our color commentator for TV. He was there, Frank Babcock, Fred Wren, George Minchie, and we were all over the United States. And we closed the contract. We had a guy that was really big in the film business, and he lined up a contract with Anheuser-Busch. We had Budweiser sponsors. We had fights that were filmed and shown in 58 countries.
Wow.
So we did really well. And my job was to referee the fights, and sometimes judge, but to go around and interact with the boxing commissions, because they were quite hostile to what we did in that time. Mm-hmm. But the way I explained it to them, we had a national meeting of the boxing commissions from across the country. Every state that had professional boxing was there. And they were, they weren't real receptive to us, and I had an opportunity to speak to them, and I said, what we do, we have 4 arms for boxing. I said, we don't hit the groin. We kick to the body, we kick to the arms, we kick to the head, we punch to the body and arms. And I said, for the safety of the fighters, instead of a 3-minute round, we have a 2-minute round. And they all started looking at each other. I said, you take your top boxing referee or boxing judges, they can step right in and judge a kickboxing match. They can do it and do a good job. And they all looked at each other, and the guy from Las Vegas said, well, you know, I got to tell you, these kickboxers are a lot better shape than the boxers are. And they train year round, which is true, because you really love it, you do it year round.
Right.
It isn't something you do real hard for 3 months and take 2 or 3 months off. You do it continuously. So I think that was a breakthrough for us. That was a big breakthrough. And then we did fights in Caesar's Palace, Circus. I refereed fights at Madison Square Garden. That was a thrill,
wow.
where all the great boxing matches were held. And then we did at the Forum in Los Angeles. So we were going to some pretty big venues. And it went really well. And in the interim, after we start...
He also refereed my fight for when I fought with the Kick US title in St. Louis, Missouri.
Really?
I did, yeah.
He refereed, I don't know how many of my fights, but probably 20, 25.
Love refereeing a great fighter. It was
Wow.
just a joy because you get the best seat in the house when you're the referee.
What was the biggest fight of Troy's that you refereed, you think?
Oh, there were so many really good ones. I'll let you tell me what was the biggest fight I refereed because you could point to a bunch of them. He rolled over so many people. I just lost track.
I know.
And I think the thing that really helped all martial arts is when he became the boxing world champion. So everybody said, look, these kickboxers are the real deal. Look at this guy. Yeah, they can. Oh, it was just wonderful. And he had a very good trainer back in the day. He had a very good trainer. So, you say which fight? Every fight. From the time he was 9 years old, I loved being in the ring because of his enthusiasm, his skill, his sportsmanship. Not a lot of people. I refereed some world champions that were not pleasant experiences, but I refereed some that were a joy to walk in the ring. He was always a joy. I was always excited. And
No surprise there. And who was your trainer, Troy?
My trainer was Jim Choate. He was my first martial arts instructor, and we trained together. I trained with him until 83, 84.
And then did you have another trainer after that?
Yeah,
or?
Casey Malone was my boxing, my kickboxing trainer. Yes.
So those were your 2 trainers in your career?
Yes, ma'am.
A trainer, I'm sure, has a big part to do with helping the fighter be successful. So
Couldn't have made it without my trainers. And I couldn't have got the fight that I got without my managers.
So I'm assuming that your trainer, like we've seen some videos of you, and I'm specifically thinking of the one with the huge cut. It wasn't a huge cut. They shouldn't have stopped the game, or I'm sorry, not game. They shouldn't have stopped the fight. But the one, was it against? Was it Oscar De La Hoya?
Yes,
that one. So was it? I'm sure your trainer was the one when you had to go sit in the corner.
The cut man. We had a trainer, and the cut man took care of it.
Okay, gotcha. So did you have that same cut man throughout your career? Was it somebody different every fight?
I did not. I had Ron Hatcher was my cut man for boxing and kickboxing. Yes. His son was Gene Hatcher, the former WBA world champion.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, world boxing champion.
And you cut quite a lot there for a while,
yes,
so I'm sure.
It was my middle name.
Roy, let's talk a little bit more about you refereeing some of Troy's fights. So it sounds like you did about 25 maybe of his fights in his career. What was the biggest fight you'd say you refereed for?
I'd probably say that Sante Wilson fight because they were so evenly matched. He was just too strong for Sante Wilson. But Sante Wilson just retired as a deputy sheriff in Dallas County.
Oh, wow.
He had a great life too. He was a good man. He was a great fighter. He won a title. But the thing is, when you had 2 really great fighters up there, it was just wonderful to be in the ring, and you had to stay out of the way because they changed directions and moved so fast. But it was just a joy to watch it. And having been a fighter and understood what was involved, it gave me an edge in refereeing and judging. And like I say, it was the best seat in the house. I had a whole lot of fun for about 10 years after I retired doing that.
And Troy, where were you at in your career when you fought against Sante? Is it Sante Wilson?
Yes. I think it was in 83 or 82, something like that.
So you had already won some world titles.
I won one world title in England.
Okay.
In '85, and then the fight that I fought Sunday, maybe it was '85 that I fought him, and I fought for the world title in '86 in Denver, Colorado.
And what was it like fighting against Sante? Like, what was his fighting style like?
Well, there was something went on before I fought him, and but he gave me a big edge because he fought my brother, and and remember what happened? He fought my brother, and then he stopped my brother because Brian, my brother, had been working not landscaping but mowing yards, and he had just gotten fired that day after he mowed yards and did what he was supposed to do, and the guy fired him that day of the fight.
Wow.
So then my brother came to the fight, or he came and he fought Sante Wilson, and Sante Wilson stopped him because Brian lost before he stepped in the ring. Anyways, then he turned to me and said, "Troy Dorsey, you're next."
Really?
They fought in a boxing match. And so then Sante Wilson said that to me. I probably shouldn't have even brought that up because Sante says this. If you see this, that's normally wasn't his style, but it really inspired me for sure. So if he would have done that, I don't know if I would have beat him or not, but I ended up stopping him. I believe in the 7th round, and knocked him down 5 times, I think.
I guess he probably regrets saying that.
Knocked down my right hand, knocked down my left hand, knocked down my right leg. So yes, it was five. I knocked down 5 times, and the 5th time he was on the ground rolling because it got him in the body, and I believe it might hurt his ribs. I know it hurt his ribs, but maybe he cracked. Maybe I'm not sure. But yes, that was he fueled the fire for sure.
Mm-hmm. Roy, was there any other memorable moments refereeing during one of Troy's fights?
Well, all of them were good because Troy had heavy hands.
Yeah.
He hit hard. He also had heavy feet. So the knockout could come with either hand or foot.
Right.
But what he did that was so good was he wore his opponents down. He was like never in a hurry. He didn't step out there. Everything he threw was hard, but he wore them down. They just couldn't stay with him. Round after round after round, and he'd win 1 round at a time. But every round he hurt him more and more. Mm-hmm. He beat them until they couldn't fight anymore. So every fight, and you say, do I remember it? I've refereed so many fights. Could I say specifically? I remember the Sante Wilson fight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But if you named another person, I'd say, yeah, I remember that fight. But it was always the same thing. He threw more kicks and more punches than the other guy, and he hit harder. And there might have been people who were quicker, who popped off quicker with that front hand or front leg, but everything Troy threw was with very bad intentions, and he wore him down. So it's a joy watching that kind of fight. And so, and I'd refereed other world championship fights, and when you go in, you have an idea. I know what this guy does. Mm-hmm. You'd seen films of him, or you trained with him, or you'd watched him fight over and over. So it was no surprise.
Right.
And he was never surprised, but he was a joy. So he was one of those guys. I really enjoyed his fights. Cliff Thomas. I enjoyed Cliff Thomas's fights. And it was Troy was the same kind of fighter as Cliff. Cliff was in a bigger weight class, but Cliff would just knock bark off of him until they couldn't go anymore, and then he'd put him down. But he was a beautiful fighter, so was he. So when he was a point fighter, when he wasn't fighting for the knockout, he was just fighting to score points, heel kicks, jump kicks, round kicks.
His famous move was the round kick, right?
Sure. Turn kick.
The turn kick.
He could do it all. That was the thing. And he was, even when he was 9 years old, he was fun to referee. He was always fun. So as he grew up, I grew up with him in the ring, watching him. So I knew him. And that gives a referee a good advantage for doing a good job in a fight. Mm-hmm. Because the only job a referee has, you don't call points. All you do is protect the fighters.
Right.
All you do is enforce the rules if there's a foul. The only reason you're in there is to protect both fighters. Mm-hmm. And so if you know what both fighters are going to do, it puts you in a good position to do it. And sometimes you have to stand real close because it's going to happen fast. And other times you can step back. Mm-hmm. But that's the important thing about it. That's the important thing. I bet you money he was a very good referee for fights too. He would have been a very good referee because he knew the whole thing top to bottom.
Exactly.
Yeah, he would have been a great referee. If that's what he wanted to do, he would have done it. Yeah.
Roy, I have one last question I want to ask you. So You have a karate school.
I do.
And is that your only location in Sharon, Texas?
It's the only one that I teach at. I have black belts that have schools in Arlington, Austin, Los Angeles, and Switzerland. And I had a guy that was teaching in Thailand, and he was doing the Muay Thai over there and also training in Japan, and he just moved back. And I had some people teaching in Hawaii and Washington State. But, you know, very few people stick with it as long as Troy has. It's something you love to do, but somehow life gets in the way.
Right.
Very few people stay with it their whole lives like he's done. Very few people.
And following Mr. Kurban, how many years you been in? 65?
This is my 58th year.
50th year in martial arts, yeah.
And so at your school, what do you teach? What age levels is it? What's the curriculum like?
Well, you're going to love this. It's a very small town, and it's a very small school, but I got some students that really stayed with it. So all my students are older, 50s and 60s now, which of course is like being a kid to me. But I've got the mayor of the town made his black belt with us.
Oh, wow.
My top black belt is an high school English teacher, and he's been with me for 10 years now.
Wow.
And I have two ladies getting ready for black belt. One lady that's a retired engineer who's 76. She tested about 6 years ago. So it's something you can do at all ages. You have to be careful as you get older. You can't do it like when you're a kid, but you can do it all the way. You can practice continuously. So it's something, you know, you love it and you don't want to put it down, but there'll be a time for me to put it down. There'll be a time. But I can honestly say that any success I've had in life has been because of my martial arts. And my understanding of Taekwondo, because I had a Korean instructor from Korea, it's a whole different presentation than what's done in most American schools. So I've been blessed like Troy Dorsey. We've both been blessed. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah. Well, thank you, Roy, so much for joining us on the show today.
An honor to be here. Thank you for asking.
Yes, thank you so much. And Troy, thank you again, as always, for being here. So, guys, this is another interview segment for If the Gloves Could Talk. We'll be right back after the commercial break and talk about our episode recap.
Oh, wow. Wow. So many memories here. I'm on to a new place now. This is really unbelievable. So when we opened up, we had our martial arts classes over here, and we had our kickboxing classes over here. But this is a great memory. So many memories made here. So many black belts. About 400 black belts during 1999 to 2022. I'm just now getting it, believe it or not. I've been in business for 41 years and with 2 karate schools, and I'm just now getting where I'm being able to get home a little earlier.
We are back from an amazing interview we had with Mr. Roy Kurban. Troy, do you want to have Roy back on the show soon?
Oh, yes. Yes, ma'am, for sure. He's got so much knowledge of the martial arts, and he's done so many things in the martial arts and not in the martial arts. He's an amazing man. He's a go-getter. He's a very great storyteller, and I'd love to have him back on the show again. So hopefully he'll be able to make some time for us. Yes, we're gonna have Mr. Roy back on the show. Of course, Ty Garrett back on in 2024. Mark Sturkey, Rick Larkin. It's
Mark Ratner.
Mark Ratner from
Mark
the
Ratner,
UFC.
yes, we'll definitely have to have him back on the show in 2024. We've got some other great guests already planned. Oh, and I can't forget Mr. Lester Bedford. He was a great interview we had as well. But some great content we're already planning for you guys. And I just want to say, I know we're only on episode 5, but I really do appreciate all of you all watching and following us along, learning more about Troy, from his fighting career to what's Troy really like outside of the ring? Is he this bad guy? Is he this good guy? So you get to learn all the details. But really, thank y'all so much. It has been so fun, 2023, getting to prepare the show for y'all and getting to record it.
So if you could continue to do that, continue to watch And if you like it, don't like it if you don't like it. And if you don't like it, then you need to leave something in the comments. Something was a little weird here. Let us know.
Just let us know.
We'll do our best to make it good.
There you go. Well, guys, we will see you next year for our very first episode of 2024. So thank you guys again so much for watching.
Yes, may God bless you and all that He brings to you next year. Let's see. Pray the Lord will bless you indeed. Pray that He expand your territory. Pray His hand will be on you, and pray that He will keep you from harm. We ask that in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you.